Barbados to get a major Inter-American Development Bank loan. A road rehabilitation project to get underway in mid-November. And an elderly Barbadian man drowns at a St. James beach.
Credible, balanced, committed. This is the CBC Evening News.
Good evening, I'm Shane Jones, leading the news at 7. The Inter-American Development Bank is expected to approve a U.S. $100 million loan for Barbados in the coming weeks. This announcement from the bank's Chief of Operations, Francisco Javier Ura. He says the loan is expected to provide the cash-strapped Barbadian government with budgetary support.
As you all know, Barbados is going through a critical moment, and we at the IDB are strongly working in collaborations with the Barbados government in the economic reforms and efforts that the country is doing. We are ready to support those efforts. The IDB is about to approve in the next weeks, not even months, a $100 million US loans that which will complement the IMF agreement.
Mr. Ura, however, stressed the loan will not affect its investments in the traditional areas, which include roads, coastal management, and energy. In fact, he says the bank is preparing to disburse some $60 million US in these areas, which is twice the amount invested last year. The next 2 years will be very rough for Barbados. This is according to Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Ryan Strawn. The International Monetary Fund approved the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation, or BERT program, on Monday and reached a staff-level agreement with the government, opening the door to nearly $300 million in critical financing. Mr. Strawn says Barbadians must do all in their power to make the program work. He was speaking during a panel discussion organized by the UWI Phil Campus Political Science Association this week.
The reality right now is we are in the process of implementing the very first stages of what we need to do to reach our targets by the end of December. And there will be more communications about that going forward, but you can rest assured that there will be a continued commitment from the government to engage and communicate with citizens.
However, Director of the Sir Arthur Lewis Institute of Economic Studies and Dr. Don Marshall says he is not a fan of the IMF. He says there were other donors outside of the fund, as well as the Inter-American Development Bank, that Barbados should be tapping into.
Take the $49 million, engage the Chinese judiciously and wisely without defaulting on sovereignty or effecting an economic denationalization of one's and avoid denationalizing one's economy, engage the Chinese in the required loans in the productive sector and bring about the transformation that BERT promises. You're not going to get out of the fund. If that is going to hit the debt matrices that the fund will speak to later when it is about to consider giving more money, then walk away from the 4-year plan, and you would have just satisfied the criteria for the first $49 million. That is my humble advice to the government of Barbados.
The head of the Barbados Private Sector Association says the island experienced a total lack of governance over the last 10 years. Chairman of the BPSA, Edward Clarke, says the last administration did not make the tough decisions that were necessary, despite the many pleas.
I think the Democratic Labour Party is still a very socialist thinking party for the protection of the people, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a very, very good thing to have, but there are times when you have to make tough decisions for the good of the country as a whole, and I believe that some of the politicians failed to do that. They decided they want to retain where they were with the popularity and did not make the tough decisions at the time. I would hope that this government, having won a government 30-0, has the fortitude to make those tough decisions. We have to transform the way we do business in Barbados, how the government operates.
Mr. Clarke says the way people are taught needs to change and made a call for Barbadians to be given a different level of education.
11+ may have served its useful purpose the way it was designed, or is designed still. but that time has come where it needs to be changed. Secondary education needs to be changed. Tertiary education needs to be changed. People have got to leave the University of West Indies, Cave Hill, or any other campus ready to work. You need to be ready to work. You need to understand business. You need to understand what work is all about. It is not like when I left school at 17 years old and went to work. These days, things have changed tremendously since then. It's a very competitive global market, and we have to be at the top of our game to compete globally.
Government's road rehabilitation program is expected to begin in earnest as early as mid-October. Minister of Transport, Works and Maintenance, Dr. William Duguid, says it's being funded through a $50 million loan from the Inter-American Development Bank. Sharika Griffith has that story.
Phase 1 of the road rehabilitation project will involve milling and paving of 5 sections of roads in different parts of the island. They include one side of the ABC Highway from the Norman Niles to Clyde Walcott roundabout, the stretch from West Road St. James to the Sir Frank Worrell roundabout at the bottom of University Hill, and 3 sections of the Charles Duncan O'Neill Highway, including Farley Hill to Cleveland in St. Andrew. Minister of Transport, Works and Maintenance, Dr. William Duguid, outlined the main objectives of the project.
The improvement of the quality of the road infrastructure through the enhancement and rehabilitation of approximately 31 kilometers of key segments of road network of Barbados, including drainage, construction of sidewalks, and implementation of safety measures in order to lower logistic costs, particularly transportation costs and travel times for the general public, as well as enhancing Barbados's tourism competitiveness.
Minister Duguid made the comments during the official launch of the project at Wanstead St. Michael. He says contractors will be working day and night in order to complete roadworks as soon as possible and with minimal traffic disruptions. Chief of Operations with the Inter-American Development Bank, Francisco Javier Ura, says the high number of vehicles in Barbados is having a major impact.
First, in the competitiveness and productivity of the economy. Second, in the public welfare and quality of life of the citizens and the people of Barbados. And last but not least, also in road safety. I think Barbados people have been paying a high toll in human life in terms of accidents, and this loan is expected to have a huge impact in improving road safety.
4 of the 5 contracts have been awarded to C.O. Williams Construction Limited and the other to Infra Inc. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Government is preparing to begin rewiring close to 300 housing units which have electrical faults. That's according to Minister in the Ministry of Foreign Trade and MP for St. James South, Sandra Husbands. She says Cabinet has agreed to dedicate $2 million to fixing the electrical issues. Tenants in units in Haynesville and the Pine are expected to be the first to benefit from the project.
We have over 290 units that will need rewiring, and the matter is something that is taking up the attention of both the Minister of Housing and the Prime Minister, because we recognize how challenging it is for residents to be living with sparks and things catching a fire and not being able to be comfortable in your home, wondering when it will go up in smoke. So I'm very pleased with the progress we're making. We're just awaiting now the preparation of the request for proposals and to get started on the work in Haynesville.
An increasing number of Barbadians are engaging in what is considered explicit inappropriate behavior. That's according to sociologist Unri Bab, as he revealed the findings of a recent study on the online abuse and harassment. Sharika Griffith has that story.
According to Mr. Bab, more than 65% of Barbadians who participated in the study admitted they had received nude videos or photos which they know were shared without the subject's consent. To put that into perspective, 6 out of every 10 people you meet could face charges for receiving and sharing pornographic material.
Another startling concern is that 40% of the persons shared nude videos of persons who they knew didn't give consent for that to be shared. So we're existing in an era where, one, it is clear that persons are engaging in a lot more of inappropriate sexual behavior, and it cannot exist outside of the workplace only. It will enter, and it creates a whole new dimension that the legislation does not cater for effectively.
Mr. Babb was of course referring to the Sexual Harassment Prevention Act, which was the topic of discussion during the 2018 Elsie Payne Memorial Lecture. Also making a presentation was Acting Deputy Chief Labour Officer Claudette Hope Greenwich. She says there's been no major increase in complaints since the act was proclaimed last December. Ms. Hope Greenwich says for the most part, many people are still hesitant to make a formal complaint.
Because what we need to remember is the sexual harassment, whether you are the alleged offender or you're the person who claims to have, been offended, whether at the end of the investigation your claim is true or your claim is not true, you both come out damaged. The likelihood is there. Because there will always be that perception by someone else, they found that it really did occur, but I don't think so. And it may cause you to be treated a little differently, but that should not prevent persons from coming forward.
She adds that the Act lists a number of actions which could constitute sexual harassment. However, that list is not exhaustive and could be amended over time. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
A Barbadian who has been living overseas for most of his life drowned this morning at Fitzvillage Beach in St. James. People who were in the area at the time of the incident recalled 70-year-old Victor Dawson shouting for help as he appeared to get into difficulty. Unfortunately, efforts to save the Mount Vernon, New York resident were unsuccessful. Members of his local family gathered at the scene along with several others as police carried out their investigations. CBC News understands Mr. Dawson was accustomed to going to that particular beach whenever he visited Barbados. Now, he'd been staying with relatives in St. James and was scheduled to leave the island on October 19th. Mr. Dawson's son, Keith Odell, who lives here but last saw his father 3 years ago during his last trip home, was one of the relatives who went on the scene after getting the tragic news.
My dad only coming on Tuesday, but he just come once in a while. But this is the first, I didn't even see for the week since he come because I was at work. But he said he was going to come tonight, but then I get a phone call that he passed away.
Lawmen are probing a shooting incident in the city this afternoon. Acting Police Public Relations Officer Michael Blackman says 2 men were injured in the incident, which occurred around 5 o'clock.
On arrival, police learned that 2 males, Kelston Petty, 20 years, of School Gap, Westbury Road, and Dave Edwards of Deanstown, Orange Hill, St. James, were shot. Kelston was shot in the right butt cheek, and Dave Edwards was shot in the left shoulder just below the neck. Both of them were transported to the QEH for medical attention.
Andre Omar Jackman, alias Lord Evil, and 2 others have been remanded to prison in connection with a number of criminal matters that occurred in Crab Hill, St. Lucie late last month. The 40-year-old Jackman of Stroud Bay, which is also in Crab Hill, is accused of using a firearm without a valid license, 2 counts of endangering life, inciting Shane Babb to engage in conduct that endangered life, and inciting Tyrone Moore to engage in contact that endangered life. He also jointly charged with 32-year-old Kieron Sylvian Moore, who is also of Stroud Bay, as well as 32-year-old Shane Hakeem Omar Babb of Ellis Road, Crab Hill, with 2 counts of endangering life, 2 counts of use of a firearm, 2 counts of wounding with intent, and 1 count of criminal damage. The 3 appeared before Magistrate Wanda Blair in the Holetown Magistrates Court earlier today. They were not required to plead to any of the indictable offenses. They're scheduled to reappear at Holetown on November 2nd. A colorful mural depicting prominent Barbadians who've made sterling contributions to the development of the parish of St. Thomas now adorns a wall at the Sharon Primary School. The mural, designed by artist Don Small, captures all of the significant memories of Sharon. Among those featured, the late Prime Minister Tom Adams, former parliamentary representative Sir David Simmons, and current MP and Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs Cynthia Ford. The mural also depicts the school's crest and motto, "Love God, aim high, keep pure." Principal Pamela Small-Williams described the occasion as historic on two folds.
We have a plaque there, but now you know, so anytime you see him, you can say, I have met him. I am extremely elated that history will be created today with the unveiling of this mural. This is where both staff and students occupy from approximately 7 a.m. on mornings to 5 p.m. almost every day.
Parliamentary representative and former teacher at Sharon Primary, Cynthia Ford, endorses the project.
I want to thank Madam Principal and the staff, and I believe the PTA and others who would have come up with this excellent idea of doing a mural. All over the world, we see murals, and there are expressions of happiness and joy. Some are of sadness too, but indeed, the history that comes behind the murals. And so I had no idea of anything happening here until about 2 weeks ago.
Former St. Thomas MP and former Chief Justice Sir David Simmons, who opened the school back in 1986, is pleased with how Sharon has been maintained.
I am almost astonished, but with the greatest sense of pleasure and satisfaction at the condition of these buildings and the ambience that the principal and her staff have created here. This is really an outstanding example of how public buildings should be managed and maintained.
In light of the challenges facing teachers at schools across the island, the Parent Teachers Association at one of them has pledged its support. To celebrate World Teachers' Day, teaching staff at Harrison College were treated to a luncheon hosted by the PTA in the school's hall. PTA President Io Burrows invited the 67 teachers to lean on the association when they are presented with challenges. She says the association recognizes teachers often go beyond the call of duty, and for this, they are grateful.
Thank you for your efforts in preparing our children for external examination, especially the unique sacrifice that means so much to us and our children with SBA marking. Thank you for the long hours of preparation for classes. Thank you for working during summers and after school to assist students who need special help, like this last summer. Thank you for readily embracing technology in the classroom. Thank you for supplementing your teaching resources at sometimes great personal expense.
A local hotelier says a lot is possible when linkages are formed between the agricultural and tourism sectors. General Manager of Divi Southwinds Hotel, Alvin Jemmett, says Barbados must be able to support the growth and development of the farming community and assist those who feed the nation and in turn reduce the island's food import bill. Divi's Pure Ocean restaurant is on board once again for what is being seen as the premier farm-to-fork or farm-to-table event for the Barbados Food and Rum Festival, the Dine Around program and Rum and Things. The program was launched Wednesday. The event, previously known as Food and Wine and Rum Festival, is now in its 9th edition and will be held from October 18th to 21st.
It will be a culinary explosion of international and local flavors, and of course, rum. Barbados being the birthplace of rum some 300 odd years ago. Our guest chef for the event will be Ray Jules, who will be showcasing her own style of slow food cooking as she plies her trade in the Langroves. But she'll be here for this event showing the true partnership between our team and other teams. This is, of course, an opportunity for guests to sample the new style of cuisine offered locally.
Mr. Jemmett says tourists travel thousands of miles just to taste Barbadian food.
The ability for visitors and locals to taste our culture through our cuisine is one of the best ways to discover our rich heritage as Barbadians. Barbados' food is a melting pot of the many cultures and heritage who make up the population of Barbados from all parts of the island throughout our history. Rum and Things is a showcase of who we are as a people, showcased through our food and our rum.
The organizer of the World of Work Showcase is bringing bigger and better things for participants this year. The event, which is now in its third year, provides prospective employees and school leavers with training aimed at effectively preparing them for the world of work. A number of partners are coming on board this time around. That's including the Barbados Lotteries, which has made a donation. Representatives from the Barbados Revenue Authority and Juliana Seeley of Julie's Party Rentals will be some of the presenters on topics ranging from taxes to entrepreneurship. Managing Director of Regional Management Services, Inc. and event producer Dennis DePisa encouraged more businesses to get involved.
We want the business community to see the importance of offering job attachments, because if we can get some job attachments to give these students the experience to live what they are being exposed to.
The Barbados Youth Development Council is also a partner in the showcase. BYDC representative Samaya Cumberbatch says events like these are important in the development of youth. She also encouraged stakeholders to play a part.
In creating a safe space for youth, it is therefore necessary to place employment and financial security at the forefront, and we once again congratulate the organizing team for doing just that and encourage the private sector and government and civil society organizations as well as government bodies to do the same. We implore all societal stakeholders to reaffirm a commitment to the young and dynamic population, which is currently charged to break glass ceilings, destroy existing boxes, and build Caribbean societies which are ready and equipped to take on the 21st century.
The showcase will come off on October 17th at the Frank Collymore Hall and will cater to 450 students. Registration is free for students and closes on October 9th.